Those of you who are St. Louisans, you'll get what that means. For those of you who might be listening and don't have any idea, welcome to about 90% humidity and 90-degree temperatures, but nonetheless. We will get started if that's all right. So call to order, please.
Ashworth,
Here.
Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Commissioner Kessler. Here.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I learned something new this week, that May has a lot of holidays. So you have May Day, come back with, for those of you who are Star Wars aficionados, right? May the 4th be with you. I saw many of you dressed in costume. It's always a holiday, right? And then Cinco de Mayo, and I think the Kentucky Derby Day was in there. And then I truly did. I found out Monday was a state holiday. So the industry that I come out of, it was not recognized, and then found out that it was Harry S. Truman Day. So impressive, very neat. So anyway, lots of holidays in May. All right, let's get going if you don't mind. Yes, sir. Oh, yep, sir. Thank you. Reminder, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thanks, sir. So as you've seen on the agenda, it is a pretty full agenda, so we will jump in very quickly. We have a lot of fun things to do with deputizations, awards, commendations, some scholarship information. Then we'll get into a little deeper conversation about how we care for each other with the Welfare Association and some wonderful new service contracts that we look forward to sharing with our partners. So thank you for that. Open conversation, open discussion first.
I have no items.
Yeah, thank you. I was just taking a double check here. Ms. Hayes, sorry, is it Harris? Thank you. Forgive me, reading new language. Ms. Harris, did you? There you are. Yes, ma'am. That's all right. We were doing an open discussion, so we're going to let you go ahead and go if you don't mind. We're going to go ahead and let you go first if you don't mind, and then we'll get into our stuff. And you can move down here if you'd like, down to the microphone. Thanks for taking time to express some concerns to us.
Okay. You see, I'm new to this, right? Good morning again. Good morning out here. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I actually came today to make a request on behalf of a young lady by the name of Miltonda Valentine. Miltonda Valentine was dropping her baby, Jace Michael Richardson, off to daycare on April 22nd. Unfortunately, his life was taken in a pursuit. Someone hit him. I'm sure you all are very much aware of what occurred. So the mom is making a request. She's hospital ridden, burned over 70% of her body, unable to walk. Her son will be laid to rest tomorrow, which she can attend. And her request for this body this day is that something very real that could be done about the decisions when it comes to police pursuits in areas that there's definitely resident, high traffic, etc. So we don't presume to have the answers. We're not here to say every effort hasn't been put forth thus far. We definitely do believe that there's something else that can be done when it comes to the rationale in the decision-making part of where the pursuits are taking place. We heard on, I think, the press conference, for example, there was a statement that was made that I think a supervisor considered calling the pursuit off because it was headed into a construction zone. And so for the public, we don't quite understand the rationale that the construction zone isn't safe, but we can go down West Florissant at 8:45, 8:50 a.m. to continue it in that particular area. So that was one of the things. But overall, we believe, she believes, her fiance believes that at the end of it all, not just the innocent bystander, the police officer, even the suspect lands in court someday, but that the risk to life is just too great. in the pursuits. And so all that we're asking is that in the name of baby Chase Michael Richardson, that we can have a very fluid conversation, not just for talk's sake, but for something that can change on his behalf. That's the request.
Thank you very much for coming to
Thank
express her
you.
concerns and your concerns. I hope she knows, you all know just how heartfelt that loss is to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you again for coming, Ms. Harris. We appreciate it greatly. Chief, we will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, we have some guests here that I'm going to ask Lieutenant Schaefer to introduce for us.
Chief Greg Grayson, Board of Police Commissioners, we've got 3 contracts on the agenda tonight. Shrewsbury, Bi-State, and Jennings. I would like to make some introductions. Chief Lisa Vargas and Captain Frank Gillard with the Shrewsbury Police Department. Their contracts on the agenda for coordinating communication services. Then also here is Ms. Delitra Hudson. She's a city clerk of the city of Jennings, and Councilwoman Jane Brown, Councilwoman of the city of Jennings. And then Captain Pete Morrow is going to make introductions to Bi-State.
Thank you. If I may, Calder Rose, President and CEO, Bi-State Development, and Kevin Scott, the General Manager for.
Welcome, by the way, extraordinarily so welcome. We look forward to our continued relationship.
You know, we've had a lot of long-term contracts with you guys, and we appreciate the work that, you know, you do for us, and I hope you appreciate the work that we do for you, and hope that these contracts can continue. Mr. Roach, you want to say a word?
If I may, just for a minute. So I just want to formally thank the commission for the professionalism of all the officers who are on our patrol, and of course with the chief. And of course, our new captain, Captain Morrow's, it's just been a pleasure to deal with, depending on the contract itself. What I do know is that as far as safety and security is concerned, we will fail without these relationships. These relationships have to be dedicated, professional, and detailed. Our organization will be dedicated to that, especially with the leadership with Kevin Scott. But I want to tell you, I will be in this council chambers asking for my FY23 budget. And I will be saying continuously that we are under contract with the St. Louis Metropolitan, with St. Louis County Police Department. And then that detail is critical to every single relationship when it comes to the contract, when it comes to we will be behind everyone. And I really appreciate the professionalism, of course, the chief's dedication, and of course, the frontline officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I could, I just wanted to say thank you. Got a lot of officers that are looking forward here for years. So I just wanted to thank you for your consideration. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to a long contract with you.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the city of, we thank you for the cooperation that we have with St. Louis County Department, and we look forward to a long-standing relationship.
Thank you.
Officer Mark Mack, come forward for your deputization, swearing in.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Repeat after me. That'd be good. Thank you. By the way, thank you for what you're doing for all of us. Appreciate that. I, Mark Mack, do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States, that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, the state of Missouri, and the charter and ordinances of St. Louis County, that I will faithfully adhere to the regulations provided in the rules and procedures for deputization as adopted by St. Louis County, and that I will faithfully demean myself as a deputized officer of the St. Louis County Police. So help me God. Congratulations. You need to ask him that.
I have some awards to present. The first one is a Purple Heart Award. Captain Snyder, Police Officer Chelsea Schaefer, will you come forward, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Officer Schaefer, who is one of my best officers. In February of last year, we had a armed robbery come out over at the South County Mall, which most of you have heard me talk about over the last couple of years. And individual approached a man who was on probation for robbery, coincidentally, and ended up robbing the individual at gunpoint. He runs away, and the officers start responding to canvass the area. Officer Cody Klotz finds him at the QT on Lee May Ferry and confronts him as he walks out of the QT. Chelsea heard that Officer Klotz had called out with a possible sighting of the individual, and when she pulled onto the lot, Officer Klotz was in an all-out wrestling match with this individual at 6:15. I think it was on a Wednesday night, and there was a lot of bystanders sitting there watching the whole thing unfold, but obviously nobody helping. Chelsea runs out of her car, and as they start to fight with him, the fight intensifies, and his gun falls out of his waistband. And then the fight really intensifies, and Chelsea ends up, after the end of this whole thing, tearing the tendons in her finger and having to require surgery, several months of rehabilitation. And I promised her mom that I would not let anything happen to her. So I'm glad that she wasn't here, that I would have to explain myself. But you did a great job, and I'm very proud of you as chief.
This is a bad hand, isn't it?
Chelsea, you have anyone here you want to introduce?
I do not. They're watching from
We're gonna
at
take a
home.
picture.
I don't know. It's amazing.
The next two awards are Chief's Commendations for Police Officer Jerry Ball, Police Officer Michael Wadlow. Sergeant Youngblood, would you come up and do the presentation?
Members of the board, Chief Gregory, members of the audience. In March of last year, Officer Ball and Officer Wadlow had received a call for a stalking report at a local restaurant. Upon arriving there, they were able to obtain the information from the victim. The suspect who was her estranged husband, had custody of their 5-year-old child and was making threats to his well-being and as well as his estranged wife. The officers were able to track down the suspect and arrest him, as well as returning the child to the mother. Unfortunately, the next day when he got out of the jail, he continued to make threats against his estranged wife, the child, as well as her parents and the members of the staff of where she was employed. They continued their investigation. They were able to once again track him down and arrest him. This time they were able to get felony warrants for aggravated stalking I believe it was a $125,000 bond was placed on that suspect the next day. They did a great job.
Get your picture. Here.
Old Lieutenant Park's out there somewhere.
Look, we're gonna take a picture, okay? First things.
Put over here.
Read the wrong memo, I think.
You guys didn't tell you, did they? Okay.
Shirts and hats.
Find out Bob something. Get through all the handshakes.
Don't confuse them, okay? The next award is the Life Saving Award for Detective Alexander Woodward, presented by Captain Tanner.
Morning. This life-saving award is being presented to Detective Alex Woodward for an incident that happened approximately April of last year. At that time, he was working in the West County precinct. Alex received a call for a sick case, person down at a local retail store, pretty typical call. When Alex gets there, he finds there is a person down, but he's not breathing, he's unresponsive. Alex immediately started CPR and he continued it until EMS arrived on the scene. So they took over, they did get a pulse, they got him to the hospital, and this individual survived. The reality, had Alex not jumped in and started CPR right away, chances of survival, that would have been pretty slim. So you just did an excellent job. Congratulations.
For the life thing.
My mother Lori and my wife Kendra.
She just the morning.
Next up, we have Sergeant Sean McGuire with some welfare scholarships.
Thank you, Chief, Board, and general public here. I'm just going to kind of hit a little bit of what the Welfare Association does for the department. There's a lot of people in the audience that know what they do already, but there are some people that still don't, especially our new employees and things like that. So Police Week is pretty busy around the St. Louis County Police Department. Obviously, our breakfast was last Friday. The Welfare Association pays for that, just to honor our fallen officers. And then this week, we are going to Washington, D.C. for the National Memorial. The Washington, D.C. trip is sponsored by the Welfare Association as well. And this year, with adding Detective Antonio Valentine to the wall, we made a board judgment call on sending as many people that were close to Antonio himself, just so they can go honor him at Washington, D.C. So usually we do a random drawing of 4 individuals across the police department, but we decided to send a little bit more of the drug unit just because they were closer to Antonio, and then also close friends that knew Antonio really well. So we're representing a lot more people that we usually do, but the board felt that it was important to send those people just to honor Tony, Washington, D.C. So With that being said, really the Welfare Association exists for the police department, and their families. We assist them financially. We assist them any way possible. They reach out to us if they're in need of aid of different things, of health issues or unforeseen circumstances, and that way they know they have that support. So our main fundraiser is right around the corner. That's our golf tournament. So a lot of people in here, I appreciate the sponsors because I see a lot of people that have already sponsored holes, and that is where we get a lot of our money to give checks to people and to pay for our memorial breakfast and a lot of things like that. So as part of the welfare, we also give away scholarships to employees, kids that are going to college or are currently in college. We usually try to do one scholarship per employee per kid. So we try to get new applications each year. That way we kind of spread the wealth on that. They're $1,000 scholarships. When I first took over as president, we only gave out 8. And I wanted to give a little bit more. And so we decided to give a scholarship to each fallen officer. So we named a scholarship after each fallen officer in our department, which is now 11. So we made that change a couple years ago just because we want to show the support to our department and their employees and their families. So with that being said, we've got 11 scholarships today. And so we went in alphabetical order. All of our fallen officers are important to us, which means all of our scholarship participants are important as well. So the first one here is the Wayne McClellan Scholarship, and that goes to Jordan Berry, which I know is in attendance. She's the daughter of Detective Mark Berry in the intelligence unit. He's also here, and she's planning on attending Cedarville University to play softball. So. The second scholarship, I know they could not make it here, but I'm going to announce them anyway. The James Reef Schneider Scholarship Award goes to Megan Cook. She's the sergeant of Sergeant Dennis Cook, or she's the daughter, sorry, of Sergeant Dennis Cook in the Jennings precinct. She's planning on attending Purdue University next year. So she couldn't make it. She had some school obligations, and I talked to Dennis yesterday. He couldn't make it due to some personal time off stuff. So let me go to the next one here. The Robert Jordan Scholarship goes to Michael Early, son of Joe Early. I don't think I've seen Joe here today either, but he's in the Wildwood precinct, currently attending St. Louis Community College is what Michael Early's doing. Next one I know is his dad's here. The Kenneth Koch Scholarship goes to Cooper Edgecombe. So Lieutenant, could you come up here? Son of Lieutenant Tyler Edgecombe, the North County precinct, and he's planning on attending the University of Missouri. Okay, the next one's the Lawrence McCormick Scholarship. That goes to Jalen Mann, son of Captain Norman Mann in the Jennings precinct, and he's going to Purdue University, I just found out, so that's great. I told you we're paying for the whole college. Next one is Joanne Liscombe Scholarship goes to James Trey McWilliams. That's son of Captain James McWilliams in BPS. He's graduating high school in May. And did he decide on a college yet? Yeah, he's going to Missouri. Okay, great. Okay. Next one here is Willie Neal Jr. Scholarship. And that goes to Paige Panis, daughter of Sergeant Tracy Panis in the Public Information Office. She's planning on attending St. Charles Community College with the A+ program. So. Next up is the Thomas Smith Jr. Scholarship. That goes to Lauren Peterson. And I noticed her dad's here, daughter of P.O. James Peterson III. And she currently attends DePaul University, and she's graduating early, right? Not possibly?
About a year.
Yeah. Next up is the Richard Weinhold Scholarship. That goes to Caitlin Pignataro. I don't know, I haven't seen Pignataro here. Daughter of Chris Pignataro Blackjack, and she's attending Northwest Missouri State University. Blake Snyder Scholarship is awarded to Ava Von Allman, daughter of Lieutenant Eric Von Allman. He's on midnight, so I didn't think he was going to be here. She's graduating Incarnate Word, and I don't think she has decided yet either on what college she is going to. And then the last one is the Antonio Valentine Scholarship, and I know her dad's here. It's Abigail Youngblood, daughter of Sergeant Mike Youngblood that we already heard from today. She's currently attending Southwest Baptist University, and she's also playing soccer for the school. So in a rundown, the board really appreciates all of the applications for these scholarships. It is fun handing out money to people. I know that assists a little bit with the college scholarships, and really the welfare just provides assistance to anybody and everybody. So whatever department employee is going through anything and they need assistance financially or just support in general, just get a hold of one of the board members, and we're happy to help. So.
Thanks, Sarge. Appreciate the work that you guys do. Commissioners, this is about the end of the fun part of the board meeting. So those of you that were going to get into some business issues, you're more than welcome to stay. If you're not, then we're going to give you a few minutes to depart.
Wrestling board cheers. No doubt. Did you want to go back? See the rest of the stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll work with you. I'll work with Kevin. Back in. Cut it short. Yeah. It was my fault.
Sir? First up on the chief's report is the budget. I talked with Terry Moran about this. I'm sure all of you know that Joyce Hill's mom passed away, so she's been out for a while. The first quarter report for the budget shows that we have approximately $900,000 in surplus. That surplus is there because of salaries that we have not paid because of the officer shortage that we have. A lot of that money some of that money is going to go toward paying professional staff pay increases. Again, with the fact that we're not using it to pay salaries. Next year in 2023, we will budget for those professional staff increases. But as of right now, there's about $900,000 surplus that we have. Some of the deficits that we show over the first quarter is overtime about $2.3 million. And I'm told by fiscal that that's probably about right on track for us as far as overtime is concerned.
Chief, does that include the 12-hour shifts and how they?
I'm sure they're getting some of that. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. Salary and vacation PTO payoffs. Kind of behind in that. Kind of behind, 1.2 million behind in that. And payoffs are based on officers that are retiring that under the traditional pay plan. From that, they get paid down on sick time, 50% of their sick time that they still have on the books. 720 hours of vacation that they are eligible to get paid down for. And approximately 80 hours of comp time and any possible holidays that they have left at the time that they retire. And as far as budgeting for that, it's just kind of a hit and miss. You know, we kind of budget as to what we look for, what we've had in the years past, kind of guessing on what we're going to have for this year. And this year we've had quite a few. So we're hitting a deficit in that right now. And then motor fuel and oil, about $900,000 deficit. We don't budget for the oil. That comes from Department of Transportation. They budget for it, and they give us an amount that we budget within our budget every year. If there's an issue with it, concern with it, then we speak with them. Joyce has already talked to Paul Kryler about our deficit and as far as gas is concerned. And that's just gas for the entire county. And again, we have some vehicle maintenance, about $200,000 deficit in vehicle maintenance. Again, I'll let you know, say again, we have about a $900,000 surplus at this time after the first quarter.
Why are we so far behind already from a deficit standpoint on vehicle maintenance?
On vehicle maintenance, I mean, it's just the fact that, you know, we send that over to County Highway for repairs. And I guess it's possibly increases in charges, parts, things like that, that puts us behind with, puts us in that deficit.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
For next month, could, not you personally, but somebody in budgeting put together an analysis of our personnel costs as far as hours of overtime versus the salaries that we're not paying? How much in overtime is due to the fact that we have vacancies?
And you'll get some of that when I talk about some of the concerns with the Jennings contract, that you'll eventually see how a position will save some overtime once we get them. Will it be a ton of overtime that we're going to save with the new position? Probably not a lot. But I mean, even with the 12-hour shifts that we have in the 1st and 7th precinct, I'm sure there's been some savings and overtime there. Will it be enough to take us out of this deficit? Probably not. But down the road, we're looking to improve that. But yes, we can get that report to you.
Sean, I like your question because it's close to mid-year, right? By the time we get back in, it'll be June. It'd be neat to have that with a bit of a financial forecast for the back half of the year, just to get a feel for it. So in addition to what Commissioner Schweren's asked, we'd like to perhaps have Joyce or whomever come in and provide us with the fuller piece on the overtime and a bit of a forecast going forward for the back half of the year.
Will do. Next up is Lieutenant Schaefer. I think you have Tanea updates.
Lieutenant, let's have Schaefer do it just to see how he does.
I think he
Is
left.
he still here?
He left. He's smart.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, good morning.
Morning.
So from our last meeting, of the 97 Teneo recommendations, do you have the pie chart? Okay, good. So as you can see, the not started has moved from 5 to 1, which is a great thing. The in progress, obviously, less that, so 36 to 31. I'm pleased to announce that we have moved our completed from 38 to 49, meaning 11 completed just over the last month. And you probably wonder why, and decline has moved 18 to 16.
We're wondering about that one.
Exactly. That's because 2 of mine, because of general orders that are now in the move that were previously declined, have now been revived and are now moved to in progress.
Is it because we looked at what we declined and decided these actually are good ideas or these are actually feasible?
Yes and no. So one was declined by Chief Barton at the time that Chief Gregory has wanted to move forward with. And then the other one was actually piggybacked off of another general order, had to do with search and seizure, and we were able to incorporate that to make it in progress. So that's the reason, those two. And then, sir, last month you had asked about kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, like a general timeline. So if you're looking at for overall, you know, as we say here, we have 31 in progress and 1 not started. So for those 32, there's no timeline that I could put on it because each thing is different. For instance, as recent as this morning, I've been in talks with Colonel Sack and Captain Jason Law regarding one of their recommendations, which is extremely close to finish. And it is, let me get it here for you. I'll use a couple of examples. To establish a formal arrestee debriefing program. That's pretty much to the end of it. They want to run it by executive command staff, make sure that they're good with the entire plan. So something like that could be done in just a couple of weeks and be
move to the completed section here for next month. Some of the others with policy, and I say mine, I mean from my bureau, we still have 5 that are outstanding. 3 have to do with the one search and seizure. That's, again, it was 2 months ago in its infancy stages. We are now through with the entire portion. The county counselor's office just sent it back. So it's getting ready to go to the deputy chief's review and then to executive command staff and ultimately command staff for approval. So I can't give a timeline because, again, in a perfect world, if there was nothing else going on, I would move this stuff next week and continue to go. But obviously, as different things pop up on the police department, and obviously with Washington, D.C. next week, it might delay it another week. So I can't put a timeline on that. Some other things, like right here in front of me, special ops. One of theirs is to significantly increase staffing for SRU and create a 4th SRU team to ensure 7-day-a-week coverage. I'm sure in a perfect world, and Colonel Doyle, I don't want to speak for him, but would tell you that, yes, obviously, including the entire command staff and executive command staff, that's in a perfect world. But because of the nature of our numbers overall, we just cannot do that at that time. So it's not something that we're willing to say, no, we're just not going to do it. It's just right now we cannot because of manpower. So point being, a lot of these recommendations are really, really close. I'd say the majority of them are closer than not. But another one good example would be the CAD update to the CAD system, right? As you folks are well aware, even if everything's signed off right this second, I mean, that CAD system may be a year to implement the entire system. So it's just really hard to pinpoint exactly when things are going to move through.
Thank you. We'll come back to it, but I want to have Lieutenant Schaefer come up and do a little more communicating on this.
Yeah.
He just walked back in, so.
I appreciate that.
Not gonna make it that easy on you. Sorry.
Yep.
So let's scratch things like staffing, which have variability beyond what's in our vision. Those things, and let's assume the CAD obviously is moving forward, right? We can't call it complete, but we know it's in progress. When you scratch off the things that aren't quite within our control, such as staffing right now.
Yes.
Do you anticipate we'll be done with the balance? That doesn't mean all of them, but the vast majority of these by end of 2022?
So when I went through these, I'd call half.
By the end of 2022?
Yes.
Half of remaining or half?
Half of the remaining.
All right.
Now, that doesn't mean that it is not going to be more. Again, if I had a crystal ball and knew where we were going to be in August or October, for instance, then I might be able to give, like I can say with confidence that, like the 5 of mine, again, they may not be next month, they may not be, but yes, you're asking me by December, 100% that they have to be done by December.
Okay, so you can anticipate a question from us probably in the October, November timeframe about where are we?
How about December?
He's bargaining. Yeah, he is, isn't he? We'll keep it in October for right now.
Sounds good.
Thank you. One last question, if you don't mind. The not started, the one
Yes,
that's
sir.
still remaining, what is that one?
So that one has, yes, that's with the Division of Patrol. It's, they call it the Rule of 60 is what Teneo, it's the general staffing guidelines should be based on what they call the Rule of 60. One of those things is 60% of the total number of sworn officers should be assigned to uniform patrol duty, that the average workload should be 60% of that officer's time and 40% is free time. Again, that's just not doable at this point with the shortage of numbers of officers. So that one has not, again, it's a work in progress. And that's a good example, again, of one that I just cannot give you, if hopefully, God willing, we have 75 officers, in the next 3 months. But yeah, exactly. But we know that that's not going to be that way.
Great.
So that's the one.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Question on that one. Have we as a department considered whether we agree with that policy? Do we think it's a good policy?
Well, I don't want to, so I'll try to speak for the chief. Of course, it would be a great policy. If you could have every police officer dedicate 40% of their time to do things like community engagement and not have to answer radio calls, I think that there should be no police department in the world that says no to that. Again, what is actually feasible is different.
Sure.
So I'll pose a follow-up thought. And again, this is a suggestion. If the rule of 60 is not feasible, although the ideal, what is an ideal and feasible rule for us at this time?
So I can't answer that yet, but here in the next few months we will. And here's the reason I say that. There's a bunch of studies basically going on. As you know, we have pilot programs on 12-hour shifts in the 1st and 7th precincts. All the while, so one of the Teneo recommendations is do a analysis on your 10-hour shift program. Well, that's going into, so we're looking at the 12-hour shifts, we're looking at the 10-hour shifts. And then once we hit the 6-month mark, myself, we have a committee that's kind of spearheaded by Lieutenant Colonel Cox, obviously being the commander of patrol. And at the 6-month mark, so end of June, middle of July, we're going to start taking a look at what our numbers look like either way. So that will give us a better indication on where we are manpower wise to see what is, so you're asking, is an 80-20. I can tell you right now, no. In the 1st precinct, those guys are consistently going call to call. It is what it is.
So I don't want to put, I'm not putting you on the spot, and I hope my last question didn't. I'm just throwing out these ideas just in response, and
Absolutely.
hopefully in conversation. Perhaps instead of looking at what our numbers are and then developing our target, we sit down and think about what is our target and then look at our numbers and see if we're meeting them or how far off we are, and then deciding, are we employing the best practices? Is there anything else we can do?
Yeah,
I guess my suggestion is those two analyses are separate. They're intertwined, but they're separate. And maybe we should approach it separate and then use what is our ideal and feasible as a benchmark.
Absolutely. And the good thing is, as you all know, I have a great staff, and I can look at a benchmark and say, how do we get there?
Yeah, not our place in this organization to dictate this, but I listen to Commissioner Schweren's directive. We've got 3 or 4 contracts where we are fully staffed that we could take her idea and say, let's pilot something. Let's try it. Let's say it's 40%, 30%, 20%, whatever it might be. Just let's see what happens.
Yes, sir.
That's what I hear our encouragement being.
And it's not a mandate. It's a thought to mull over, and then we can have further discussions.
Completely understood.
We would like for Lieutenant Schaefer to come down and finish the rest.
He's better than me anyway, so.
He's not going to live it down. You're doing good.
All right. I guess we'll roll right into crime statistics.
Yes, sir.
You all are. Sergeant Graff out there?
Oh, I saw.
Somebody from out there? Okay, thank you.
It's on the email. Yeah. Like it's coming out.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, look at that. Hey, this I like.
All right. So as we roll through these, obviously, April numbers, and we look at the notable events, which to me is one of my the best gauges. Obviously, you look at citizen complaint incidents. So we're still at 3, which is a good thing because that means that was a total. That was 3 last month. It's a total of 0 citizen complaints against our officers in April. For internal investigations, the number now sits at 46. It was 41 as of last month. So has not gone up too much there. Use of force incidents up to 81, still lower than the last 2 years. And a total of 20 in April. And we had 29 in March, just to give you a gauge there. Department vehicle accidents sit at 55. We had 14 of those in April. And vehicle pursuits is now at 12, which equals 2020. And there were 4 vehicle pursuits by the department in April. The failure to yields continue to tick higher and higher. So 714 from January 1st through April 30th. 237 of those, as it shows in parentheses, occurred in April. So nearly 70%, it's about 69.8% of the entire failure to yields happened in March and April. So as you can see, as we, I know 2 months ago exactly, we started talking about the weather and things are starting to heat up and the numbers are rising. So the heat map that my team makes, this is the count total year to date. The first precinct had 52 failure to yields in April. Jennings had the highest number. They had 64. So if you look at that, right at 50% of failure to yields in April occurred in either the Jennings or the North County precincts. Moving on to the April numbers. So the numbers at the bottom here for patrol, when I look at the totals, they haven't fluctuated hardly any from March to April. So for instance, whereas you see the radio calls is 26,736, in March it was 26,432. Again, 18,084, and it was 17,695. So not a whole lot of movement there. The one statistic that I would draw your attention to is the 104 guns that we seized in April. That's compared to 56 that we seized in March. So some really good work out there by the officers in the Division of Patrol.
Lieutenant, can I ask a dumb question real quick? On the failure to yield, there were a couple of spots that were within the city. Were those initiated in the county, or how'd that happen? I was looking on your heat map.
Yeah, so they would be initiated in the county.
Okay,
Yep, for us.
got it.
Yep.
I've got an interesting question that hit me. The DWIs, the 20 that we have year to date. Do you have any feel for how that compares to previous years? What I'm thinking is, we were locked down for 18 months, probably didn't do much driving. Suddenly we're all doing a little more driving and perhaps coping with COVID.
So that's 20 for the month.
Oh, for the month.
Yeah, and we had 19 in, that's correct. So I can get you year to date for Division of Patrol. Now understand this is patrol, so like highway safety is going to write massive amounts as compared to that division, but I can definitely get you that. All right, and then as we go into the crime data, crime against persons. Again, it's our numbers continue to actually go down. We were at, everything's negative with the exception of the assault, the aggravated assaults with a cutting instrument. However, even though it's up 16.1%, in the previous month, it was at 41.7%. And then the aggravated assaults with hands, feet, or fists is now down to +4%. That was at +50%. So everything continuing to go down and -7.4% overall there. Here's our.
Can you go back one, sorry.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just looking at this.
No reason that I can pinpoint, no. Yep. But as always, I will have an answer for you.
Thank you, sir.
Threats to
That's right.
verbal threats to people that actually were there, conducted at that time, but mostly verbal.
That's right. That, and your question though was why was it up, right? I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I'll find out exactly why we're up 25 there. Here's our homicide infographic that Faith Kistler puts together for us. The comparison, as you can see down there in the lower left from 2021 was the 28 homicides last year, the 20 investigated by crimes against persons this year. And then obviously up top, 15 of those in the St. Louis County patrol areas and 5 municipal homicides.
It's interesting, the average age of the victim and the suspect, how they match in both categories.
Yes. And I think that myself looking back, the folks from homicide could tell me better, but I would assume that it looks like it's been that way for several years.
Strange statistic.
Yes. Crimes against property. Again, same thing. Looking pretty good for us. Arsons are up. It's only 4, but it shows 23.5%. I definitely cannot explain that one. The larcenies, motor vehicle thefts, and destruction of properties have all gone down since last month. So motor vehicle thefts were actually up 8% as of the end of March, and now they're only up 2.9%. So
Why? That's great, just luck, or did we?
No, I think it's
did anything new,
exactly, so to me, it's exactly what I explained just a couple of months ago, because remember, we had seen such a massive spike and we were way up. We were up by over 30% because of those extreme cold months. But now we're starting to now it's just, everything's just regressing back to the mean.
So we're not running our cars before.
That's exactly correct. And then crimes against society. There's the DWI year-to-date total. As
Again,
compared,
that's just patrol, correct?
this would be department-wide.
Department-wide.
This one, correct. Yeah, that first slide is just patrol statistics.
Numbers.
Very good. And then our calls for service. I just made a few notes here in February. Every precinct, so in February of this year, every precinct was under what their moving average was. Again, as the months get warmer, now we see that March and April, every precinct is now back above their moving average. So the calls for service, just the directed calls for service, becoming more and more. And self-initiated down a little bit, because as the guys are more occupied with answering the radio, they have less time to do self-initiated activities. Top calls pretty much never changes. Sick cases are always going to lead the way. And finally, our TSR data. Again, I compare these each month to month. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in 6 of our precincts, we were down in the percent of minority stops from the previous month. And in 2 of them, we were just up slightly. But again, no, as we do, the TSR committee, the Traffic Stop Review Committee just met last week. And we discuss all of the TSRs and traffic stops, and every officer is given a score. It's a Z-score that compares the index of the officers that they work next to, and there was no concerns out of any one officer on a department. And that's all I have, unless you have questions.
I have a quick question, and it goes back to the first slide, but you don't have to go back to the first slide. Would it make sense for us to look at things like use of force or citizen complaints as a percentage of either citizen-facing officers or like our calls for service plus self-initiated calls in order to normalize the comparison from year to year?
We do. If you would like me to include that, if you remember, I'm not going to have it on here. I'm sorry. This is not set up this is just my thumb drive. The use of force analysis that I did from the previous few years. Each year it was way less than 1% of citizen contacts, if that's what you're saying. So we look at the calls for service, which was in the 500,000s last year, 250,000 roughly of self-initiated calls for service. So you take those 750,000 calls, and the number of force incidents is less than 1%. But I can absolutely include that if you'd like that in these slides for sure.
So forgive me, I had forgotten, but now you reminded me. And yes, that makes sense. I don't know, I would throw it out to everybody. Would it be valuable to see it year over year? Compare it year over year? Or do you already do that, and can you share the conclusion?
Yeah, and
Is
that's
it
something
stable?
that the team can run within seconds for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. I can give you next month, I can do a year-to-date comparison. So we can look at what be January through May, maybe, of this year as compared to last year, where we all calls for service.
Perhaps a couple of years, if you can go back that far. Let's say maybe a 3-year or a 5-year trend.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just say that the lieutenant was managing the scorecard on Monday for he and the deputy chief. And given his accounting when they won the tournament on Monday, that all of his numbers should have an asterisk by them for audit purposes.
Lieutenant Schaefer, you're up now.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good job on Monday.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's going to be a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
I've got the staffing report for you as usual. We remain at 969 authorized and 898 actual commission. That's a 71 officer vacancy. Class 204 started in January 3rd. As you know, we're going to have 19 graduate, hopefully on June 16th at Merritt's, and that's going to be an early start there, 6 p.m., and we'll get the information out to you before, obviously, well in advance for that. Class 205 started April 25th. Traditionally, April classes are smaller. We have 5 recruits in that class. That includes 3 security officers that were promoted to recruit. And there are 7 municipal officers and 2 open enrollments. So it's a class of 14 as compared to about 28 or 29 in class 204 total. And class 206 is scheduled to start June 27th. And right now we have 2 recruits. We gave conditional offers. Chief gave conditional offers to 3 recruits from yesterday's interviews. We have 15 more in process. So that's an additional 15 possibility. I'm not sure of how many municipal or open enrollments we'll have for that. With respect to professional staff, we have 375 authorized. That hasn't changed. And 329 actual with a vacancy rate of 46. The lion's share of that is in security services, part of which is because they're getting promoted and moving on to the academy, which is obviously a good thing, but creates another issue. The recruiting office and Captain Morgan, the commander of security, are working closely on different promotional things to do and get more security officers and so forth. Again, I know the board knows this, remind the public that we're very supportive of the military. We have 9 out on leave. That hasn't changed since last month. And I'll get into a little bit of recruiting at the end, but there is a visit to Fort Wood tomorrow that a recruiter is going to attend, and Lieutenant Edgecombe, who was up here earlier, he's military. And so with his experience in that regard, they're going to go hit Fort Wood and see what they can do. The average on retirements and resignations, it's a little lower for police officers from last year. Right now it's at 6.3. We normally see retirements very early in the year for a variety of reasons. Last year it was 7.6. Right now it's 6.3 per month. And then professional staff is up a little bit from 6 to 5.1 resignations and retirements. We only had 1 pro staff retirement. And
Carl, before you move.
Yes, sir.
That's a pretty substantial difference. That's 1 a month based on what you're describing, 1.25 a month.
Correct.
Why? Because we know we have a lot of people who could retire. Why are they not? Why are they down this year? Do we know?
So, well, there were 11 retirements so far in 2022. In 21 total, there were 45. So I'm not sure of the answer. You know, maybe with the new CBA, people are hanging on a little longer. That was a good thing. And so, you know, I'm optimistic in regard to the retirement. Some of them we know, particularly with commanders, we expect some of them to retire, and we're anticipating that. And obviously that'll create a movement for promotions and for commissioned police officer open spots. And but no, other than that, I'm not sure of the reasons. Other than across the nation, employment-wise, employees are just changing jobs quite frequently. And I read last week that 40% of all nurse applicants or nurses that began within their first year, 40% of them resigned because they just didn't expect. Nursing's a tough profession too, just like being a police officer, similar. And 40% of them resigned. It's just it's just kind of a trend across the nation with employees that people are moving a lot. It's not just police work. Obviously, we have our own challenges with law enforcement and the difficulties of that and trying to track people. But it's a common trend, I think, that I'm seeing, that I'm reading about with respect to all employment, that people are just moving jobs very frequently. Grass is always greener, I suppose, or they just didn't know what they were getting into. And we hear that sometimes from some folks who are leaving. With respect to applications, this is February, we had 30 police officer applicants. The number of applicants, as I referenced, we have about 15 in background, 11 were NBQ'd, 10 were voluntary withdrawal. Those numbers don't always line up because obviously we'll get applications in, but they may not voluntarily withdraw or be NBQ'd until months later.
Do we know why they were withdrawn?
Typically, it's because they have either found another job and they don't tell us what it is. Rarely is it, I've found another law enforcement agency. We do the recruiters, everyone does a good effort of explaining why St. Louis County is the preferred police department. We'll even mention that in final review board. When we have an applicant in front of us, we always ask, hey, where else are you applying at? And we'll carefully and tactfully explain why the St. Louis County Police Department is a better place to work than whatever agency they're applying at. So the total hires for the year so far are 22. We have 5 commissioned, 17 non-commissioned. And with respect to the recruiting that I referenced before, not just Fort Wood, we're going to, the recruiters are hitting the Air Guard hard at Lambert. We're going to Scott Air Force Base. They've already been to many other colleges. I think I referenced last month at Greenville College Criminal Justice, Greenville, Illinois, came to tour the building and the facilities and so forth. And I believe that included communications and emergency management, which, as you know, is a very impressive facility. They're continuing with the college visits. They'll be involved in the Annie Malone Parade this Saturday, Chief. I don't know. I guess Chief's going to be out of town, so he won't be there. And there's going to be many events over the summer that we'll keep you posted on. They're also just trying as a small percentage of their effort to do field recruiting. Some might call it cold calling. They'll go to a target and stand there and just talk to folks that are coming in and get the word out about the department. Still working on tuition enrollment with respect to some of the local universities, including a couple HBCUs. And if I don't know if you've noticed or not, but we have a media blitz with respect to radio, print, and social media, and that's garnered many applications that we're processing right now. And of course, the referral amount has gone up to $800 and $1,000 for an experienced employee or officer. So that's seen some activity with respect to employees taking advantage of that.
Carl, at the back half of the year, so maybe August, we get a further breakdown into source of candidates, right? So you talked about we've got a lot that are coming in on the social media stuff. I know Commissioner Banks has been working with your organization to try to modify, perhaps modernize a lot of that. But maybe in the August board meeting, can you give us a little deeper breakdown on candidate
Certainly.
pool, source of candidates, quality of candidates coming through each of those pools?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Sarge, can I get the exit interview? So in your packet is a summary of the exit interviews from February 1 to May 10th. And I know you can read the numbers and so forth, but just a little explanation. So there were 28 total surveys. There were 8 going on to law enforcement, 10 going on to the private sector, and 8 retiring. And the reason that there's it's only 26 is because some folks refuse to answer some questions. And as I've explained previously, it's a process where the interviewer enters the information and tries to cull information, gather information from the exiting employee in as frank a manner as possible. So you build a rapport with the the employee that's leaving, and you try to get as full answers as possible obviously without forcing them to answer anything, which is indicative in the new pay. You have 11 of the 28 saying they're getting an increase, 3 are getting the same pay, nobody's taken a decrease, but then you also have 14 that refuse to answer the question. And it's not necessarily adversarial or problematic. It's just they choose not to. And we take the tack that, that's their business, and we appreciate them even participating in the exit interview. So the top 3 reasons for leaving: career advancement opportunities is separate and apart from hired by another law enforcement agency. That's third. Career advancement means the interviewee perceives the new job as being more beneficial for career advancement and income than they do our police department.
Can you clarify that? So that may or may not be a law enforcement position.
It is not.
It is not. All of that is covered in 3.
Correct. And then 2 kind of overlaps, and I guess now's a good point. We have a pretty extensive exit interview that I would expect, but this is just my predisposition. Now that we're automating it will be tweaked. I mean, inevitably. I think we need to tweak certain questions and so forth, so it's easier to produce the data. Open-ended questions are great, but you have to limit them because they're hard to categorize. And that's just my predisposition. We'll see how this works out. The intent is to inform the board on a quarterly basis about these exit interviews so we can have a good pool. I'd love for one quarter for there to be 0, so I have nothing to report, but we'll see how that goes. So the rating the department you see in the upper right, scale of 1 to 4, 4 being high, 1 being poor. So 3.2 rating the department, not bad. Rate of pay is fair to Midland at 2.6. Morale a little low, 2.3. I think part of everybody recognizes that you have some employees. I know retirees normally rate very high and are very supportive of the department and so forth. And folks leaving after 4 or 5 years, they generally have more of a negative interpretation of the police department and what morale is and so forth. So as you can see, the other categories: treatment, working conditions, and so forth. Professionalism almost always is rated high, 3.3. Job satisfaction is fairly high with 3.1. So, and then the pie charts explore other positions. You see it's about 50-50 there. I think that correlates with, did you speak with your supervisor or not? And, certainly some people have their minds made up that they're going to leave or not. I know I talk to supervisors and they make the effort to do that. I think that'll be a part of we'll implement some policies and some protocols to kind of encourage what I'll call the common sense of, stay in touch with your subordinates, try to read them, try to understand their needs and so forth, and maybe that will be interpreted or result in retention. And then I think this figure is remarkable. Would you recommend working for the St. Louis County Police Department to others? 85% said yes. So I think that's a great indicator. And would you consider returning? 74%. Part of that's affected by retirees. Obviously, they're not going to return unless they're going to be an intermittent employee.
Of the pie chart questions, did all 28 answer each of these questions?
No, not all of the questions. That's a good point, because as you can see, with pay, only 14 of them answered. But I would suspect, and we could probably call that data.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just the 4 questions that are the pie chart at the bottom?
Right. And I would say that I believe that's a very high number of people who would answer. It's more the personal, what's your pay, what are you doing, that sort of thing that they're averse to. I would think, and we can figure that out next time as to the percentage of that.
I think also next time, if it's possible, if we could separate the responses for retirement from the responses for anything else, that would be instructive.
Yeah, and some of these are not recommend, speak with your supervisor. Those recommend would be a retiree question. Speak with your supervisor would not, but that's a fair observation.
So,
We can do that.
questions?
Yes, sir.
I've got a couple. Please, you ready? All right. So how do, on the rating of the department, you've hit on the highs and the lows, which is exactly what you need to do, but how do we unpack morale and fair and equitable treatment a little bit more? How do we get a little deeper into those? Are those follow-up conversations? Are those, because those are obviously significantly lower than the rest of them. We'll stick with working conditions being somewhat controllable, somewhat not. So that's my first question. My second question gets to the two pie charts on the right. Agreed with you, 85% of our people saying that they would recommend. That is extraordinarily high. It's wonderfully high. And certainly even returning at 75%, notwithstanding retirees may or may not answer that. Those are both very, very positive numbers in any type of benchmark survey. The two on the left, though, you've talked about them. And you teed up a concept called a stay interview, right? So I'm using some of the more current language, which is,
Right.
are our leaders out there talking to the people about, what's going on? What are you thinking? And you can get ahead of some of these things about why they would rate the department low or why they're leaving. If we can just do the current term of stay interview, most of us would refer to that as, are you just talking to your people and understanding what's going on in their lives? So if we can figure out how we might move beyond just policy to do that and build that into our leadership development, that's part of what a role of a leader would be. And I know we do, right? But how do we make sure that happens, captains? It'd be awesome.
So, ask part of the question I was thinking about. More specifically, how is morale defined? And just, what I'm saying is because it may be something different to each person. So how do you quantify that?
And that's a great point. And that goes back to the tweaking that I was referring to earlier. I think as we work through it, we try to keep I'll do exit interviews of sergeants and above, typically that are retiring, obviously, or not, like Lieutenant Dolly left, he did not retire. I typically will do them, and we try to build a rapport. We try to get frank answers so they're open and they're comfortable and so forth. And so part of that is, in order to get the consistency that you're really referring to, is to have a script. So morale can be a very broad subject. Other areas can be a very broad subject. So I think that's something we will look at. And if we have to tweak it because we're not being clear, or maybe we're getting some disparity that doesn't make any sense, we'll figure out a way to define that a little better. I think in the exit interview context right now, morale is just, morale. The officers, the professional staff, they talk about it all the time. Some people think it's great, some people don't.
Talk about it all the time. What specifically morale thinks around here? What are the elements of morale? I guess that's
And it's a garden variety. Pick your poison. If somebody thinks morale is bad, my supervisor isn't fair to me. I can't believe I'm in this precinct. I can't believe I'm on this shift. I can't believe I don't get perceived. I don't get support on certain things, that kind of a thing. And I think that goes to to cull that kind of thing and really approach it is more the staying interview than it is the exit interview, to try and figure out what it is that they're complaining about, or that the reason for morale, and what can we actually do about it.
So I guess, because it seems to me so that if in fact you're asking the question about morale, that there would be bullets under it to define specifically what it means. That makes sense.
And it does, and I think that goes back to the tweaking. And to address it specifically, I think it's appropriate to have them separate, because I think every meeting I mentioned Colonel Bader, but I can tell you his morale was very high. And he will say that he would rate his fair and equitable treatment as high, but he would tell you that he was transferred like 9 times as a lieutenant. And he didn't ask for it. Of course, he abided by the transfer order. But for some people, if they get transferred a lot or transferred where they really don't appreciate the transfer, they're going to perceive that as unfair treatment, and their morale is going to be bad. So they kind of overlap. I think you're right. But I think it's important to keep them separate, because some people could say, you know, I get transferred all the time. I hate it, but you know, I love being a police officer. You know, so they can be a little different. They can overlap also.
So I think we just heard you two agree that we need a little more detail around what morale means.
And I would agree with, along with a Stain interview, along with analyze, you know, this is the first time we've automated it, and we're going to work out the kinks, and, you know, like anything, it can be improved upon, and we'll certainly do that. I think they need to be, yeah. Good, sir.
Else?
No, sir.
Anything else for Mr. Becker? No.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Sergeant McGuire, anything else for us from your Welfare Association? We know you hit a good part of it. So I've got a couple of questions around how long has the Welfare Association been here?
That's a great question, sir. President recently since I've been employed 16 years. Chief Gregory.
Been here for a long time.
Long time. Thank you. And do we know how many lives we've touched in that long time? Any guess? A lot. Several. He had several just today. Yeah.
Not very helpful, but board does is we offer support to the employees. We don't want to. So it's a very tough situation if somebody's going through a sickness or they can't work or sick. Try to keep that in-house.
Very private information. Yeah. And how many other police associations, police departments have something like a welfare association in the neighborhood?
We have a couple ourselves. It's helpful. We all work together, especially recently. Officer need a and the association as well. So all 3 of us work together in-house on trying to assist families.
Who comprises your board?
So it's Amy, Secretary, President, Sasha Ricky, Vice President, Zach Sigler is our It's 4-year terms. Anyone in the department that's civilian association, it's open to everybody, and basically we work for the.
Well, not that I have the authority to speak on behalf of this board, but thank you for your leadership.
You do. You do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, and particularly the way you care for our employees who are in need and their family members, not just immediate, but when you read some of the things that you were referring to, that's ongoing support over years. And we cannot thank you and all of you enough for caring for us. It's very important. Thank you.
Sad, sir.
Anything else, Chief?
Contracts. First, I want to commend Sergeant McGuire again for what he does with the Welfare Association, and the fact that we have 2 other entities that do the same thing for our police officers here. Take a personal relationship about what they are going through. Asked about how long Welfare Association's been long. I've been personally touched by the Welfare Association with some issues that I was having, and they stepped up and did what they've done. I was in a Backstoppers meeting the other day, and we were talking about Backstoppers. I mean, what they do, not on the line of what Backstoppers do. Like I said, we keep this in-house with what the Welfare Association does, but it's kind of like the same thing. They support their officers. Backstoppers support those that are killed in the line of duty. We, the Welfare, FOP, and Family Association support the people here. And I appreciate the work that they do. 180 DWIs. You asked about our Highway Safety Unit got an award about 2 weeks ago for the number of DWI arrests that they made.
180, is that what we heard you say?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, they made 180 DWI arrests. Right? And like I said, they were awarded at the MAD dinner about a week or so ago. Morale. If they don't like their uniforms, morale can be low. You know, they might like the protective vest that we're looking at getting. That might bring the morale up a little bit, you know. Beards, did that help morale? Maybe for some, maybe it didn't. So as we were saying, we're going to break that down to the point where we'll let you know, what are the positive things that we're doing to bring up morale. You know, some guys like the 12-hour shift, some guys hate it, and that'll take the morale up or down depending on them. Don't like the precinct they work in, or they love the pay rate that they're getting. That brings morale up. So we'll just break that down so that you get a better understanding of what we're talking about when we're talking about morale.
Would be helpful too, Chief, to even ask our officers and our professional staff what would help bring morale up, right? We may think it's left and they may think it's right, or we may think it's blue and they may think it's green, or maybe we both think it's blue and we both think it's green. It'd be, as you go through the data, the proactive side would be helpful too.
For sure.
All of morale standing alone doesn't tell us enough.
Exactly.
Some of them could be just what you said. Some of those more specific areas would help try to clarify what people are struggling with.
And we'll get into that. I'm not making excuses. I refuse to make excuses for Lieutenant Shellman. Okay. In reference to our work with Teneo. His unit does a great job in putting the work together and coming up with what we're trying to satisfy with Teneo, with the Teneo report that we got. And it's continuous work on their part. And, you know, you throw out the manpower issues that we're dealing with that has some effect on what we're trying to do with Teneo. And something else that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that throw that out and let's deal with some of the things that we have some type of control over right now. Most of the Teneo recommendations dealt with what Lieutenant Shellman has to do in his unit in reference to changing the policies. And they're working on those policies. And you've seen the process that policies have to go through before they get final approval from the board. It's a long process. It's an extended process that we do. And then on top of that, all of our policies are reviewed every 3 years. So if that kicks in while they're dealing with Teneo policies, then again, we're going to need time to deal with that. I like the December, okay? Thank you, Lieutenant, appreciate that. I like the December to give us some time to work on this, but I just want to commend him and what his unit does and working toward satisfying some of these Teneo concerns.
I think we agree. I'll speak personally, being perhaps the newest on the board. The difference in your attitude, the collective attitude, right? Not just your attitude, but your leadership team and your officers and your professional staff around what the intent of Teneo was is night and day from what it was 12 months ago. The acceleration that you all have done to say these are important things as opposed to discounting if some outsider came in and told us all the things that are wrong. No, let's absorb this as feedback so we can make it better. Maybe it hits morale. Maybe it hits. I compliment you as a leader, compliment Deputy Chief and all of your leadership team on the change of attitude around what that means.
We appreciate it. That's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. It is, it's neat to see all the last 3 or 4 meetings, things like Purple Hearts and commendations and life-saving awards, the impact that our officers have on our community and each other. Pretty amazing to see. Really, really neat. Love the fact that we have these types of awards.
You know, when you bring that up, I heard me while watching this being presented that the general public really does not know about all of those kinds of events. It seems to me got to be a way to make that more broadly known, rather than, you know, some of the negative feedback. And even, for example, some of the social media. What was it? If I'm mistaken, 100 guns. Is that right? Yeah. See, things like that, I think can impact the general public in some very positive kinds of ways. knowing that they are being protected, knowing they're being protected in those ways, knowing that there are people who have risked their lives. I know we have the, digest, but that's sort of in terms of thinking, even, when you put in ads for recruitment, and maybe some of those monies can be used to kind of spotlight some of the positive stuff that's happening on a basis.
I know that Sergeant Panis and our Police Information Office have been working on describing an image for this department, and that kind of information can go out in reference to describing us as a department, and they're working on that. And I agree with you. There's a lot of positive information that we need to get out about this department. And, we publicized this board meeting where we're doing these things now where they hear about us. We did a press conference the other day in reference to the enforcement that we had with our special enforcement, the results that we've had from that. There's a lot of positive things about this department that doesn't get out, and it's up to me and the rest of my command staff to help us get that information out about this department. Again, publicizing that the department image that we're working on, recruitment, so forth and so on. So I understand what you're saying.
We'll have a request for Sergeant Panis and the group to come in and talk about our communication strategy here in the next couple of months.
Will do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all. We have the need to approve our minutes from our April 18th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Second was done by Michelle. All right. Any additional conversation regarding those minutes from April 18, 2022? All in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They are approved. Thank you. Letters and communications is the next topic. Do we have any incoming communications? Diana, anything else? How about outgoing communications? We have one.
I move that the board send a letter requesting guidance from the AG's office concerning clarification of certain sunshine law restrictions in public communication versus closed communication.
Let's have a moment of conversation. So why would we do that, Michelle?
I believe some guidance from the AG's office would better solidify our ability as a board to communicate certain aspects of the department and more clearly define whether those conversations are appropriately held in closed session versus open session.
I'm looking for his guidance on that.
Correct.
Very good. Thoughts?
I agree.
Yes? We have.
We need to vote on it.
Yep. We haven't voted to send. Yep. All right. So we have Michelle's processed the
I
motion.
moved.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor of sending a letter to the Attorney General for clarification on sunshine requirements as it impacts this Board of Directors? Board of Police Commissioners, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we shall so send a letter. Anything else from an outgoing communication standpoint? Any other old business? All right, we have some contracts in our new business. That is the only thing out there. So we'll ask at the end. There are 6 contracts. 4 of them are police service agreements. 2 of them are professional service agreements, and we'll vote on them in those bundles. The 4 police service agreements and the 2 professional service agreements. For those of you who are perhaps new to the room or watching, the 4 police service agreements were the introductions that we made earlier regarding Jennings and Shrewsbury and Metro. Yeah, Metro. So thank you for that. 6 contracts. The first 4, police service agreement, City of Jennings. It's a full service police agreement between the City of Jennings and St. Louis County Police Department. The service is for a period of June 1, 2022 to March 30, 2023. The annual charge is $3,424,225.80. The second police service agreement is also with the City of Jennings. It is to approve a new contract for 1 police officer between the City of Jennings and the St. Louis County Police Department. Services are for a 1-year period that concludes on April 30th, 2023 for a charge of $118,888. Police service agreement with the city of Shrewsbury, a new contract for coordinated communications and computer-assisted report entry, also referred to as CARE. Services between the city of Shrewsbury and the St. Louis County Police Department. They are for a period of year and a half from July 1, 2022 to December 31. Let me back all the way up. It is from a period of July 1, 2022 to December 31, 2025. The annual charge is $44,854.80. And the last police service agreement is with Bi-State Metro, the Bi-State Development Agency. The contract is for full police services between Bi-State Development Agency and the Missouri-Illinois Metropolitan District and the St. Louis County Police Department. Initial term is July 2, 2022 through December 31, 2023. Renewal term is January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024. The initial term cost is $8,332,822. $8,332,822. May we have a motion to approve?
These agreements be approved.
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any further conversation on the 4 contracts?
Those 80 cents are really,
Did I miss an 80 cents in there?
No.
No 80 cents. Got it. No 80 cents.
Of the 8 cents.
No 80 cents. All in favor of the 4 police service agreements, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, they have been approved. The last 2 are professional service agreements, one with St. Charles County and one for the St. Louis County and Municipal Police Academy. The first one with St. Charles County. It is a contract between St. Louis County Police Department and the St. Charles County for fiscal year 2021 Enhanced Collaborative Model to Combat Human Trafficking Grant. The grant funds the multi-jurisdictional human trafficking task force, which employs 1 detective from St. Charles County. The contract is for $305,448, which will cover the salary, benefits, and overtime of the detective for the grant period, which runs from October 1st, 2021 through December 30th, 2024. Did I misstate that? Did I? September 30th. Let me do it again. October 1, 2021 through September 30, 2024. Thanks for correcting. The second is a professional service agreement for Law Enforcement Seminars LLC. It is a new contract with Law Enforcement Seminars to provide St. Louis County and Municipal Police Academy with an instructor to teach a program entitled Internal Affairs Investigations on September 8th and 9th, 2022 at a cost not to exceed $6,000.
I move we approve these contracts.
Thank you. All in favor of approving these contracts?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have 6 new contracts. Thank you to the city of Jennings, to the city of Shrewsbury, and to Bi-State for the partnership. We appreciate it greatly. All right, and we move to public forum. Any other new business? Sorry about that. Anything else for new business? All right, we move the public forum up. Diana, just to double check, anything else from a public perspective? Very good. Appreciate the flexibility there as we tried to get her in and out, not have her sit all day. All right, may we have a motion to hold a closed meeting? Okay, sure. I was either. Thank you. The motion to hold the Board of Police Commissioners may vote to go into closed meeting for legal advice and review of claims and lawsuits involving the police department, section 610-0211 and RSMO section 114-0201 SLCRO, discussion of employee and personnel matters, section 610-0213 and 13 RSMO and sections 114.0203 and 13 SLCRO. May we have a motion?
I move we go into closed meeting.
Thank you. Second. Diana, can you take a roll call vote, please? Yes.
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 We are moving to closed session. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Here we go.
Back on. So good. Thank you, sir. We're back from closed session. In closed session, we had a roll call motion to move back into open session at the conclusion of resolving all of our matters subject to the closure. It was a unanimous roll call vote. All four of us, wouldn't be nice to have five. All four of us commissioners said yes to return to open session. Next meeting is on June 8th. It will be in this building. This will be the last time we're in this building, at least through October, while they do reconstruction in here. So just as a FYI. And with that, anything else? May we have a motion to close? Sorry, may we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
think it's roll call.
Phone call.
Oh, sorry, roll call. Thank you.
Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks? Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwer?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.